Hello, Potomac 3rd grade. Miss Manno here. We are going to continue with our read aloud called Runaway Ralph. When Miss Catlett finished chapter 1, we learned that Ralph was just planning to run away. So we will see in chapter 2 how his adventure continues. Chapter 2 is called The Open Road. Too excited to hide under the grandfather clock, where he could watch television, Ralph spent the day beside his motorcycle under the television set, watching life in the lobby and waiting for night to come. Luggage was set down with a thump. Guests complained that there were not enough towels in their rooms. And when the guests had gone, the desk clerk said to Matt, "What do they think this is? The Waldorf?" The Waldorf is a fancy hotel in New York City. Ralph listened as the manager of the hotel spoke sharply to the housekeeper about the cigarette ashes on the carpet. The housekeeper spoke even more sharply to the maid who ran the vacuum cleaner so carelessly that Ralph was not even frightened. He was too busy thinking of the night that lay ahead. When the boy called Garth clumped across the lobby in his new cowboy boots on his way to Happy Acres Camp, Ralph longed to follow him out the front door and down the steps. Late in the afternoon, new guests straggled into the hotel. Some looked at the shabby furniture and dusty deer heads and left. Others, too tired from driving to look further, stayed. When the television set was turned on, Ralph polished the chrome on his motorcycle with his paws. When the set was silent, he napped, too excited to sleep soundly. At last, the bugle in the distance played its slow, sad notes, and old Matt left the front door open as he went out on the porch to look at the stars. The moment had come. Ralph snapped his crash helmet in place. He grasped the handlebars and pushed his motorcycle out from its hiding place, avoiding the attention of the night clerk by guiding it along the edge of the baseboard to the front door. On the porch, he mounted and with a vigorous rode across the cracked concrete to Matt's feet at the top of the steps. "Hi," said Ralph, who was able to talk to animals and any human being who loved speed and motorcycles and who understood that the only way to make a miniature motorcycle go was to make a sputtering noise that sounded like a big motorcycle. "Why, hello there, young fellow," said Matt. "Just where do you think you're going?" "I'm running away," said Ralph, "on my motorcycle." "You don't say!" exclaimed Matt. "Yes, I have had enough of this place," said Ralph. "I'm going someplace where I can be free." "You want to get away from your family?" said Matt, grasping the situation at once, meaning that he was understanding what was going on. "You want to be independent." "That's right," said Ralph. "I'm tired of being bossed around by my mother and Uncle Lester. I'm fed up with my pesky little brothers and sisters and cousins. I don't want to grow up to be another crumb-scrounging mouse. I want adventure and excitement, and I'm going to ride off on my motorcycle and find it." "Sounds good," observed Matt. "I wish I could do the same, just ride off into the night on a motorcycle. I always wanted a motorcycle, but I never could afford one. When I was young, I had to help my folks." Folks in this case is his parents. "And then I had a family on my own to take care of. Now that my family has grown up and gone away, I'm too old for a motorcycle." The mouse and the man were silent a moment before Ralph said, "Well, I guess I'd better be going." "So long," said Matt. "Good luck. I'm going to miss you." It always cheered me up to see you tearing around the halls like a little daredevil. Made the suitcases seem lighter somehow." With that parting comment, he turned and started back toward the door of the hotel. "Hey, wait!" squeaked Ralph. Matt turned. "You want something?" For some reason, Ralph hesitated before he said, "I was wondering if you would lift my motorcycle down the steps for me." "And I was wondering how you were going to manage," remarked Matt, but he did not move to help Ralph. I'd like to get started," said Ralph. "I have a long way to go tonight." "Sorry, I can't help you out," said Matt. Ralph was astounded. For a grown-up human being, Matt always had been cooperative. "How come?" he demanded. "If I lifted your motorcycle down the steps, you would be depending on me," said Matt. "And depending on others is not being independent." Ralph was bewildered. "How am I going to get my motorcycle down the steps without breaking it?" "I don't know," admitted Matt. "I just hope I don't have to come out here in the morning and sweep up pieces of red motorcycle." He turned then and went back into the hotel, closing the door behind him. "Well, how do you like that?" said Ralph to himself. "And all the time I thought he was my friend." Off in the distance an owl hooted. The night suddenly seemed vast, and a mouse a very small creature indeed. Vast means big and open. The row of empty chairs rocking in the breeze made Ralph nervous. He could not get over the feeling there were unseen people sitting in them. Ghosts who might at any moment chase him and steal his motorcycle. He looked down at the 3 concrete steps and the curve of the driveway below them. His motorcycle was a good, sturdy vehicle, but it would never survive 3 bounces on concrete. It would be smashed to bits. Bits for Matt to sweep up in the morning. Suddenly, Ralph was angry. He was furious at the way his old friend had treated him. He would show Matt that he could manage without help. Matt would come out in the morning expecting to find Ralph waiting to be let in. But Ralph would fool him. He wouldn't be waiting, and there wouldn't be any broken motorcycle at the foot of the steps either. Ralph set about finding a solution to his problem. He looked at the ghostly rocking chairs and the cracked concrete porch, the steps, and the asphalt driveway below. Once Ralph had taken the trouble to look, the solution to getting his motorcycle down the steps seemed surprisingly easy. About 3 inches below the porch on either side of the steps was a sloping section of concrete, a sort of ramp intended as an edge to the steps. The 2 ramps were about 10 inches wide, and each sloped down to a flat section. Below each flat section was a shrub that had been pruned into a somewhat lopsided ball of leaves. All Ralph had to do was ride his motorcycle over the edge, down the slope, and into the shrub, which is a small bush, which would break his fall and let him slide gently through the leaves to the ground. The only problem was that terrifying 3-inch drop from the porch to the slanting concrete. Ralph was sure that with a cool head and steady paws he could manage. He would show old Matt a thing or 2. Ralph wheeled his motorcycle back from the edge of the porch, but in line with one of the concrete ramps. High speed would be best, he decided. Speed fast enough to carry him over the edge without wobbling so that he would land on the ramp on both wheels. Ralph's heart was pounding as he mounted his motorcycle, but his head was cool and his paws steady on the handle grips. Ralph drew a deep breath. His paws tightened on the handle grips. He rode smoothly toward the edge of the porch. He held his breath as he shot on into space as he had planned. There was a sudden heart-shaking drop before the tires hit the ramp. At this point, everything went wrong. Before Ralph realized what was happening, the motorcycle shot down the ramp, which was worn smooth by the many children who had slid down it. Ralph flew into the air and flew upside down it into the shrub. He lost his grip on the motorcycle and felt himself brushed by leaves and scratched by twigs until he came to rest wedged into the crotch of a small branch. Here's the picture of Ralph falling into the bush. His helmet had fallen off, one ear was scratched, and he was badly frightened. But he was not injured. When Ralph had caught his breath and his heart no longer pounded against his ribs, he boosted himself up so that he was sitting in the crotch of the twig. The shrub was not the leafy cushion he had expected. From his perch in the center, he could see that the leaves grew only on the tips of the twigs, and that the bush, which had looked soft and springy from the outside, was on the inside leafless and spiky with dead twigs, or little sticks. My motorcycle, thought Ralph frantically. Where is it? Then he saw it, far above his head, hanging on a twig by his bike wheel. His helmet, however, had bounced to the ground. Ralph did the only thing he could do, and that was climb up to his motorcycle and start chewing. The twig that had held the motorcycle had a dry and dusty taste, but Ralph chewed until it snapped, and the motorcycle slid down to the crotch of the twig below. Ralph climbed down, and when he could not free the motorcycle with his paws, he started chewing once more. No little cousin was ever going to say to him, "What happened to your motorcycle, Ralph? Huh? What happened to your motorcycle?" Ralph chewed his motorcycle from one twig to the next, and the lower he went, the thicker the twigs became. By the time the motorcycle dropped to the ground beside the helmet, Ralph's jaw ached. He dragged the motorcycle across the weedy patch of lawn to the driveway and was about to mount or get on it when the door of the hotel unexpectedly opened. An old Matt in pajamas and a bathrobe stepped out on the porch and looked around. The little fellow must have managed to get his motorcycle down the steps somehow, Ralph heard Matt mutter to himself. Now maybe I can get some sleep. That is where we are going to stop for today. My task for you is to think of a character trait that describes Ralph and write 2 sentences that tell why you picked that character trait. Now remember, a character trait is a describing word that talks about the character. So it talks about Ralph. Think about his actions. Think about what he's doing. Think about what words you would use if you had to tell somebody else about Ralph. We've learned a lot about him so far. We will learn more about him, but there is at least one word that comes to Miss Manno's mind right away as a word to describe Ralph. And I'll give you a little hint as to what that word is. It starts with the letter B and is a synonym for the word courageous. So just a little thought for you to finish up the day. I hope that you are enjoying your time at home, and I look forward to reading to you again very soon. Bye, guys.